We're breaking down the techniques that I learned working at Michelin star restaurants to dry age squab. We're then going to pair it with some amazing corn techniques, some umami packed Maitake mushrooms, and an amazing squab sauce. The recipe's on my website, linked in the description. There are 5 steps to breaking down the squab for dry aging. Step 1 is to remove the organs. We aren't using them in the recipe, but they do make an amazing chef snack. Step 2 is to remove the wings. Cut around the bone to release the meat, then pull the wings back to break the joint and pull off. Repeat this on the other wing. Step 3 is to remove the legs. To ensure that you have enough skin to completely cover the breast, cut as close to the legs as possible. Bend the leg back to expose the joint and cut through. Step 4 is the breast. Separate the rack from the lower back by cutting in between, then through the spine. Split the back in half and remove the kidneys. Then remove any pockets of fat by the neck by scraping the pockets of fat on the skin with the blade of the knife. Remove the neck from the rack and wrap the skin over the top, making it nice and taut. Cut the wings at the joints to split into 2 pieces. Step 5 is to dry age the racks. Place them onto a sheet tray with a rack for 3 to 7 days, which will dry out the surface of the bird, allowing us to get a perfect skin. Initially, I was going to serve the legs, but it turns out I didn't have enough bones, so I needed to use this for the sauce. To clean the corn, I found the easiest way to remove the silk is to pinch it with the husk and pull it to remove as much silk as possible. Any large clumps I like to pull off, and then I like to torch the ears to burn off any remaining silk. Use a wet paper towel to rub away any burnt hairs. For the charred corn, bring a pot of water to a boil and add in the salt. For every gallon, you want to add a cup of salt. Add in 1 ear of corn to the pot, simmering for 4 minutes. To stop the cooking, shock in an ice bath. To get perfect rows of corn, cut in between 2 rows of kernels, turn the blade, and slice off the corn. You want to be gentle with this to not break it up, and then transfer it onto a tray. Repeat this in sections on the corn, moving any pieces that are not whole. Once they are all on the tray, separate them into smaller pieces. I like to go 3 to 4 wide and 6 to 8 across. To make the corn puree, trim off any remaining corn from the cooked ears, plus some uncooked ears, enough to fill a quart. I used 5 ears. To get the most flavor from your corn, use the back of your knife to scrape the cob. Place the corn kernels into a blender to liquefy. Then strain, being sure to press the solids. This is where all the flavor is. Add the corn juice to a pot. I strained mine twice because I dropped some of the solids in, but under normal circumstances, this isn't necessary. Cook until the corn is nice and thick. When you move the spatula through the puree, it should slowly move back. The puree is naturally thickened by the cornstarch found in the corn, which means that we cannot refrigerate this or add acid, or the starch will break down. Whisk in 24 grams of mascarpone, season with salt, white pepper, and strain. For the Maitake mushrooms, trim the base off, then separate into small clusters. Use your knife to trim the stems up to a nice point, then place them presentation side up. This will make it easier when it comes to cooking them. Chop up all the trim, which we'll be using in the sauce. To make the squab sauce, heat up a pan over high heat. Once it begins to smoke, add enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. I'm using avocado oil. Turn the heat down to a medium high and add in the bones in a single layer, cooking for 10 minutes or until GBD, golden brown and delicious. I added the trim here, which turned out to be a mistake. Because it was dry aged, some of it started to burn. Give the bones a flip and cook them for an additional 10 minutes. A good sear is essential. The fond that develops is where the sauce gets all of its flavor. For the first deglaze, add in 4 ounces of water using a flat wooden spoon to remove all the fond that has formed on the bottom of the pan. Once the pan is all sec, almost dry, and you hear the bones starting to sizzle again, deglaze with 2 ounces of chicken stock. As the stock reduces, the gelatin from the stock should start to coat the bones and the color should deepen. For the mirepoix, cut 3 ounces of onion, 2.5 ounces of carrot, and 2 ounces of leek into 1/2 inch pieces. Add the vegetables in plus 2 ounces of the mushroom trim. The water inside the vegetables will provide the liquid for deglazing, But if you notice that the fond doesn't fully come up, add in some of the water. This will help prevent it from burning, which will add a bitter flavor to your sauce. Cook until the vegetables are slightly caramelized and the pan is au sec. Add the remaining 8 ounces of chicken stock, 8 ounces of veal stock, and the remaining 8 ounces of water. Scrape up any remaining fond from the bottom, then bring to a simmer. Pull the pot halfway off the burner to create a convection simmer, which will push all the impurities to the side. Using a spoon, scoop all the impurities off and into a cup with water. Dipping the spoon into the water will help prevent incorporating the impurities back into the stock. Simmer for 30 to 45 minutes, skimming often until the stock has reduced to the level of the bones. Strain the sauce into another pot and reduce by half or until nappe to coat the back of a spoon. Add in thyme and let this infuse for 5 minutes. My sauce had a slight bitter flavor once reduced, probably from the dry aged trim. To round out the bitterness, add in a splash of vinegar, preferably sherry, and cold cubed butter. Then strain the sauce into a clean sauce pot and hold off to the side. Since the skin is dry, salt will not stick. Brush the birds with oil and season with salt. Heat a pan on medium-high and add in a thin layer of oil. Add the squab, browning the skin all around. You should hear the skin pop and sizzle. This is a good sign. Then place the squab in the oven for 2 to 3 minutes. Remove the squab from the oven and add in butter and thyme. Once the water is fully cooked out of the butter, you will know this because the bubbles will stop. Baste the squab until you reach the desired doneness, ideally around rare to medium rare. Pull from the pan and let the squab rest in a warm spot. Remove the thyme from the pan and place the mushrooms in. Presentation side down first. Seasoning with salt. Once they are GBD, flip them over and add in some fresh thyme. Add in 2 ounces of chicken stock, cooking down until the mushrooms are glazed. Then remove from the pan. For the charred corn, use a torch to char. Then top with butter and melt. Once the squab is well rested, 10 minutes or so, remove the breast from the rack, which is similar to cutting chicken. Trim up the breast, remove any extra crispy pieces, and warm up the puree and sauce. To plate, place down a spoonful of puree. Then use the back of the spoon to spread out. Add the squab breast, 2 pieces of charred corn, 3 mushroom bunches, sauce, and garnish with thyme leaves. Everything pairs really well. I also think that all these ingredients would pair well with chicken. Squab tastes similar to duck, but it is more tender, which allows you to cook it less than you would duck. If I was going to make this dish again, the changes that I would make is adding the trim later, and I would also cook the squab less. I might also just skip the oven and just baste in the pan a little bit longer. I will definitely be cooking more squab. If you enjoyed this video, you should watch this video next.